Welcome back to Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases.
It's great to be diving in again.
Today, we're really digging into a set of expressions that honestly go beyond just adding words. They add real depth, a real precision to how you communicate in English.
Exactly. And that's the goal for advanced learners, isn't it? It's not just knowing the definition, but really feeling the nuance, understanding the subtle power behind these words and, how they genuinely elevate your message.
Absolutely. We're here to unlock those nuances.
That's the plan.
And actually, this whole deep dive is inspired by a fantastic lesson from SpeakDuo. They designed these lessons specifically to help people speak English with, absolute confidence.
They do great work.
Yeah, so if you're looking for ways to actually use these phrases or, just meet amazing people from all over the globe who are also practicing English on video calls, you should definitely check out SpeakDuo.com.
It's a brilliant way to build fluency and confidence.
Totally. A really invaluable platform. But okay, for now, let's jump straight into these phrases and really unpack what makes them, so special.
Let's do it.
So let's start with one that I think perfectly captures that feeling. That mental and physical drag many of us get. We're talking about to be lethargic.
Right, lethargic. At its core, it describes a state of pretty profound sluggishness, a significant lack of energy, maybe even enthusiasm. It's definitely more than just being tired.
That's interesting you say that because, on the surface, you might think, isn't that just tired? Or maybe sleepy. So what's the crucial difference? What makes lethargic the maybe more precise word sometimes?
That's a really good question to kick off with, because while tired usually points to physical exhaustion, after exercise or a long day.
Your body needs a rest.
Exactly. And sleepy obviously suggests you need sleep.
Mm-hmm.
But lethargic, it conveys something deeper. It's this pervasive lack of vitality, this sluggishness that can be both physical and mental.
Oh.
And it often hangs around even after you've rested. It implies this general dullness, almost a lack of responsiveness, like you're feeling weighed down and your motivation is just evaporated.
So you could have slept 8 hours and still feel lethargic.
Precisely. Whereas if you were just tired, a good night's sleep or a nap would usually sort you out. Lethargic is more persistent, more internal.
Got it. So it's that kind of mental fog, that heaviness, maybe even a resistance to doing anything rather than just needing sleep. I can definitely picture that.
Yeah.
The example sentence we have here highlights it well. After the long meeting, I felt completely lethargic and just wanted to nap. That suggests more of a mental drain, right? Not just physical tiredness from, say, running around.
Exactly right. It points to that mental depletion. And think about how you might use it. Maybe at work, you could say to a colleague, I've been feeling a bit lethargic all morning. Maybe it's this gray weather finally getting to me.
Okay, yeah. That paints a clearer picture than just, I'm tired.
It suggests a general low energy, something affecting your whole state, or thinking about something like the IELTS speaking part 2, maybe describing a challenging time. You could say, there are periods when, after a really intense week at work, I just feel lethargic. It's hard to get motivated for anything, even simple things like chores.
That makes sense.
It feels like more than just being physically drained. It's like a profound lack of mental drive.
That IELTS example really nails the emotional and mental side, that inertia, like you said. Okay, so for you listening, what makes you feel lethargic during the day? Think about that for a second.
And the sample answer we had is actually super relatable. Eating a big lunch always makes me lethargic in the afternoon.
Oh, definitely. The classic post-lunch slump. I think we all know that feeling.
Right. It's a perfect example of something triggering that specific energy dip.
Okay, so it describes that state very precisely. But let's dig a bit deeper. What's the real advantage for an advanced English speaker in choosing lethargic over simpler words like tired or sleepy? How does it actually elevate their communication?
Well, the power is really in its precision. When you use lethargic, you're painting a much more vivid and accurate picture of an internal state. It's not just tiredness.
Right.
It implies this deeper, more profound lack of vigor. And that can subtly suggest other things, like maybe burnout or a prolonged period of low motivation, not just a temporary physical thing.
So it carries more weight.
Exactly. Think about it in a workplace.
Mm-hmm.
If you describe a team member as lethargic rather than just tired, it might actually signal something more serious is going on. It could prompt a different kind of conversation, maybe about workload or well-being.
That's a really good point. It shifts the focus.
It does. It shifts the potential solution from, they just need more sleep, to hang on, is there a deeper issue here we need to address? So it adds this layer of, let's say, empathy and analytical depth to your description. And that's crucial for nuanced communication anywhere, really.
Absolutely, painting that fuller picture. Okay, great start. Now, let's completely shift gears. Let's talk about a phrase that's much more idiomatic, often used with a bit of humor. To live under a rock.
Ah, yes. Living under a rock. It's a great idiom. It basically means being completely unaware of something that, well, most people know about.
Right, like something really major or popular happened and you just missed it.
Exactly. It implies you're surprisingly out of touch with common knowledge or current events.
So how is saying someone lives under a rock different from just calling them, say, uninformed or maybe out of touch? Because those also mean you don't know something, right?
They do, yeah, but the nuance here is really key.
Yeah.
Uninformed is pretty neutral. It just means lacking specific information. No judgment, really.
Okay.
Out of touch, it suggests maybe a broader disconnection from current trends or reality. Perhaps a generational gap, or maybe someone's just not interested in popular culture.
Right, a general state.
Yeah. But to live under a rock, that's much more specific, and it's often quite dramatic. It's frequently used with a bit of self-deprecating humor, like you're admitting your own ignorance.
Or maybe gentle teasing if you say it about someone else.
Could be, yeah.
Mm.
Or just genuine surprise. It implies an almost comical level of ignorance about something that's really widely known or incredibly popular. It suggests you've been isolated from common knowledge, like you've literally been hiding away somewhere.
Like in a bubble, yeah, where this huge thing just didn't penetrate.
Precisely. It's not just that you didn't know. It's like, how could you possibly not know?
I love that description. Comical level of ignorance. It really captures that feeling of being blindsided by common knowledge. And the example sentence does too. I had no idea that show was so popular. I must have been living under a rock. It's a nice, self-aware way to say it.
It is. And you hear it in different contexts. Maybe at work, if someone missed a huge company announcement. You haven't heard about the new policy rollout? Wow, have you been living under a rock this past week?
Right, implying it's been everywhere.
Exactly. Or, thinking about IELTS again, part 2, maybe describing a cultural trend. You could say, honestly, when TikTok first exploded, I genuinely felt like I was living under a rock. Everyone else seemed to be making videos, and I hadn't even downloaded the app. I felt totally clueless.
Oh, I can relate to that. Especially with social media trends, they move so fast. Okay, so for you listening, have you ever felt like you were living under a rock about something?
And the sample answer we had is perfect because it was such a global thing.
Yes. I only recently found out about Wordle. I was definitely living under a rock.
Yes, Wordle. If you missed that, you were definitely under a rock. That's a great example.
It really is.
So, given its informal, idiomatic nature, what makes to live under a rock so effective? Why use this picture instead of just saying, wow, I didn't know that? What's the extra impact?
Well, the deeper insight here, I think, is its metaphorical power. It's vivid. Living under a rock creates this strong mental image of someone totally cut off, isolated.
Yeah, you picture it literally. You do. And that makes the expression more memorable, more impactful than just a plain statement. It also allows you to soften the admission of ignorance, maybe with that touch of self-awareness or amusement we talked about.
Right, it takes the edge off potentially looking silly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps build rapport in conversation. It conveys not just the fact that you didn't know, but also your reaction, your surprise, maybe slight embarrassment about being so out of the loop on something seemingly everyone else was aware of. It's about expressing that feeling of being an outsider to a shared cultural moment.
It's all about that imagery, isn't it? Adds so much flavor. Okay, moving on. Let's tackle a very contemporary phrase, one used to comment on how widespread certain trends become. To reach peak something.
Ah, yes. Reaching peak. This phrase basically signifies that something, a trend, a phenomenon, maybe even a situation, has arrived at its highest, most extreme point.
Its maximum level.
Pretty much. Maximum presence, maximum popularity, maybe maximum influence. It's hit the ceiling, so to speak.
Okay, so how does saying something has reached peak differ from just saying, I don't know, it's become very popular, or it's hit its peak popularity? Is there a subtle hint of something else going on?
Oh, absolutely. There's a crucial nuance here. While saying something hit its peak popularity is more of a factual observation about how widespread it is.
Like it's at the top of the curve.
Right. But to reach peak something often carries a more, let's say, evaluative, sometimes almost critical feel.
Yeah.
It implies that the trend hasn't just maxed out its reach, but it might also be getting Well, a bit tiresome.
Okay. Oversaturated.
Exactly. Oversaturated, maybe even slightly ridiculous because it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
It subtly suggests that the trend might be about to decline, or at least that the initial buzz has worn off. There's a sense of fatigue, maybe even an enough already vibe.
Got it.
So it's less about celebrating the popularity and more about commenting on the saturation, almost hinting that the novelty's gone.
That's a brilliant distinction. It perfectly captures that feeling when you've seen something so much, you're just over it, maybe even starting to dislike it a bit.
Yeah, that's often the implication.
The example sentence nails this. I think we've reached peak avocado toast. It's everywhere now. That it's everywhere now really emphasizes the oversaturation, the fatigue.
It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Or think about a business context. Discussing marketing with a colleague, you might say, I think our team might have reached peak influencer partnerships. Every single brand is doing it, which makes it harder for us to actually stand out.
Okay, yeah. Implying the strategy is losing its edge because everyone's copied it.
Right. Or for IELTS, talking about food trends. While I do enjoy bubble tea sometimes, I kind of feel we've reached peak bubble tea. There are shops opening on every corner. The market seems totally saturated. It's almost too much of a good thing.
I can definitely see that applied to so many things, from fashion fads to tech gadgets. So for you listening, what's something you think we've reached peak of recently?
The sample answer we had resonates with a lot of people. Honestly, I think we've reached peak superhero movies.
Yes, that's a common one.
It is. So many people feel that way. They've dominated cinema for so long that there's this definite sense of fatigue setting in, maybe a desire for different kinds of stories.
It hits that been there, seen that note perfectly. Okay, so thinking strategically, what's the advantage for an advanced speaker using to reach peak something? How does it convey more than just popularity? What's the deeper insight it offers?
Well, the deeper insight is that it encourages, or at least reflects, a more critical way of thinking about trends, rather than just passively accepting them.
So it's analytical.
Exactly. When you say something has reached peak, you're not just reporting its popularity. You're often making an implicit comment about its likely future trajectory. You're hinting at a potential decline, maybe a loss of its original appeal because it's just overexposed now.
Or maybe it's become a bit cliche.
Or even absurd, yeah. So it allows you to express a more sophisticated analytical view on cultural or market saturation. It suggests the initial excitement is gone, and maybe it's time for the next thing. It shows you're not just following the crowd, but actually evaluating the lifespan and the impact of a drink.
That's a really powerful way to frame it, moving from observation to evaluation. Okay, next up, a phrase about getting things clear and finalized. To pin down something.
Right, to pin down. This means to identify, define, or decide on something very clearly, very definitively.
Like making it concrete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It often implies you're trying to make something that was maybe a bit elusive or ambiguous, concrete and precise.
Okay, so when we used to pay down, how is that different from just saying decide or maybe figure out or even clarify? Because those also lead to clarity, don't they?
They do. But to pin down adds this crucial layer of implied struggle or difficulty.
The effort involved.
Yes. Decide is about making a choice. Figure out is about understanding something through thought. Clarify is about making something less confusing. But to pin down, that specifically suggests a real effort, maybe a persistent struggle, to finalize something that's tricky to grasp.
Like it keeps moving or changing.
Exactly, like trying to catch a moving target or trying to solidify something that keeps shifting. It implies you're overcoming ambiguity, maybe resistance or just complexity to make something precise and fixed. It really emphasizes the challenge in achieving that final definition or decision.
That image of catching a moving target is spot on. It really highlights the effort. The example sentence captures this too. I'm still trying to pin down the best idea for my presentation.
Yeah.
It's not just deciding. It implies working through fuzzy options, refining, maybe struggling to define the absolute best one. There's a process of effort there.
Precisely. Or in a work context, a manager might say, could you please try to pin down a final meeting time with the client by end of day today?
Implying it's been difficult to schedule.
Exactly. Maybe lots of back and forth conflicting schedules. Or for IELTS, maybe talking about future plans. Right now, I'm really trying to pin down exactly what my long-term career goals are. There just feel like so many interesting options, and it's hard to commit definitively.
Yeah, that really communicates the difficulty in crystallizing a clear path when things feel uncertain. I think many of us can relate to that.
For sure.
So, for you listening, is there something you're currently trying to pin down in your life? A decision, a plan, an idea.
And the sample answer reflects this common life challenge, trying to pin down what kind of career path I really want. It's a perfect use case describing that challenging, often elusive process of making a precise decision about something big and complex.
Makes total sense.
Mhm.
So for an advanced speaker, what's the real strategic value here? Why use to pin down instead of something simpler? What depth does it actually add?
Well, the deeper insight, I think, is that to pin down lets you convey not just the result, the decision, or the clarity, but the struggle and the persistence that went into achieving it.
Okay, so it tells more of the story.
Exactly. It adds this layer of emotional or practical context. It highlights the effort required. So if you're talking about analyzing complex data, understanding an elusive concept, or finalizing a tough negotiation, using pin down tells your listener, hey, this wasn't easy. I put in the work.
Right. The resulting clarity is hard won.
Precisely. And that makes your communication more sophisticated, more relatable, because you're acknowledging the complexity involved. It shows a more nuanced understanding of the effort that precision often requires.
That's really powerful. It conveys the journey, not just the destination. Okay, let's shift to a phrase focused on intention, consideration, often with a real emotional weight. For someone's sake.
Yes, for someone's sake. This means doing something in the interest of or for the benefit of a particular person.
Right.
The action is motivated by their well-being, their wishes, maybe even their reputation or moral standing.
Okay, so how does for someone's sake stand apart from just saying maybe for someone's benefit or simply to help someone? You mentioned emotional weight. Is there maybe even a hint of sacrifice sometimes?
You've hit the nail on the head there. That's often the core difference. For someone's benefit is usually quite direct, focusing on a practical advantage. To help someone is about providing assistance.
Mm-hmm.
But for someone's sake frequently carries a stronger emotional or even moral layer. It strongly implies care, concern, maybe a sense of duty or obligation. Sometimes, yes, even sacrifice.
Okay.
It suggests the action is taken primarily out of consideration for their well-being, their feelings, their comfort, perhaps even prioritizing them over your own convenience or preference. It highlights a more selfless motivation.
It definitely feels more empathetic, more deeply driven. The example sentence captures this emotional side well. We should leave early for the kids' sake so they can rest.
Right.
It's clearly about prioritizing their needs, comfort, rest potentially cutting short the adult's enjoyment.
Absolutely. Or in a work situation, imagine a team conflict. A leader might say, look, for the sake of team morale, let's find a way to resolve this peacefully. We need to find some common ground here.
So the action resolving peacefully is driven by the well-being of the whole team.
Exactly. The collective interest. Or, for an IELTS answer, describing a big family decision. My parents decided to move back to their hometown for my grandmother's sake. She was getting older and really needed more support and, companionship nearby.
That really shows a decision based purely on compassion and duty towards family.
Precisely.
Okay, so for our listener, think about a time recently. What's something you've done specifically for someone else's sake?
And the sample answer gives a very clear, everyday example. I skipped a night out for my friend's sake because she wasn't feeling well.
Yeah, simple act of consideration, putting her needs first.
Exactly. Even if it meant a small personal sacrifice of fun.
So, thinking about advanced communication, what's the ultimate impact of choosing for someone's sake? How does it add that layer of empathy, motivation, or perhaps moral depth that simpler phrases might lack?
Well, the deeper insight is that it really communicates the why behind an action, not just the what. It's not just about doing something for someone.
It's because of them.
Precisely. It's doing it because of what it means to them or what they need or what it represents in terms of your relationship or your values. It emphasizes the underlying reason, which is so often an emotional one.
Okay.
It conveys a deeper sense of responsibility, compassion, maybe even selflessness, like we said. So when you use this phrase, you're not just stating a fact about an action, you're articulating your consideration for another person's welfare or feelings. That makes your communication much more impactful, much more emotionally resonant. It adds a real human connection.
That's incredibly insightful. It really is about the intent. Okay, let's move to something very different, a very modern kind of playful phrase construction that's all over the internet. Trend plus core, like cottagecore or normcore.
Ah, yes, the core suffix. It refers to this humorous, informal, and very trendy way of naming a specific style, usually fashion or an aesthetic, sometimes even a whole lifestyle, based around a particular theme or concept.
It's like a naming convention for vibes.
Pretty much, yeah. It's linguistic shorthand for distinct visual styles or feelings.
So, how does adding core to something like cottage or bookstore differ from just calling it a style or a fashion trend or an aesthetic? Is it just internet slang, or does it capture something genuinely new about how we categorize things now?
That's a great question. I think it does capture something more specific. While style or fashion trend are pretty broad.
General terms.
Right. Adding core specifically flags up a very distinct, often quite niche aesthetic or vibe. It's highly themed, and you can usually recognize it by very particular visual elements, specific clothes, certain decor, types of activities, maybe even a whole mindset.
Okay. It's more holistic.
It really is. It strongly implies a subculture, often one born online, on platforms like TikTok or Pinterest. And it's typically used either humorously or, maybe more often now, quite seriously, to identify a very precise genre of visual or lifestyle preference, one that has a clear, often carefully curated set of characteristics. It's about a fully immersive theme, not just a surface look.
It's like shorthand for an entire mood board, or maybe even a shared online identity. That makes sense. The example sentence captures this immersive quality. Lately, I've been into cozy core, all oversized sweaters and warm tones.
Yeah, you instantly get the picture, don't you? The whole comfortable, warm scene.
You do.
Or you might use it informally at work, maybe talking about office design. Did you see Sarah's new office setup? It's totally minimalist core, implying that very specific, decluttered, maybe stark look.
Right. Not just minimalist style, but minimalist core.
Exactly. Or for IELTS, describing personal taste, my preferred style of interior design definitely leans towards cottagecore. Lots of natural wood, floral patterns, that general rustic, charming feel. It instantly signals a very detailed preference that hints at a whole lifestyle vibe.
I love how specific those examples are. So for you listening, what's your favorite aesthetic or core right now? Maybe dark academia core or gorp core.
And the sample answer gives another lovely specific one. I love bookstore core, vintage glasses, cardigans, and tote bags.
Perfect. Again, it highlights how core immediately conjures up a very particular detailed aesthetic, right down to the accessories and the whole feeling.
It really does.
So looking at this linguistically, what makes this core suffix so effective at capturing modern trends, especially in these fast-paced online environments? What's the deeper insight into its power?
Well, the deeper insight, I think, lies in how core has evolved into this really potent linguistic tool. It allows for instant recognition of a vibe, and it helps create a shared understanding within specific communities, especially online.
Like a secret code, almost.
Kind of. It's super efficient shorthand. It communicates a whole world of visual cues, feelings, maybe even lifestyle choices, without needing paragraphs of description. It really shows how language adapts, how fluid it is, especially responding to new cultural things emerging from digital spaces where trends get categorized and shared so quickly.
Right. Language evolving in real time.
Exactly. And it's not just a naming thing. It's a way for people to identify with and, celebrate shared taste, often with a playful or sometimes ironic twist. It perhaps reflects this growing desire for niche, hyper-specific identities in our very connected but maybe sometimes overwhelming world.
Fascinating. It really is a linguistic chameleon, perfectly adapting. Okay, let's switch focus again. Let's turn to a phrase that is absolutely vital in discussions about credibility, about proof. To give no evidence.
Right, to give no evidence. This means simply making a claim, an assertion, without providing any factual proof, any supporting data, or any logical reasoning to back it up.
So a completely unsupported statement.
Essentially, yes. It directly points to that complete lack of substantiation for whatever is being claimed.
Okay, now, we sometimes talk about someone making an unsubstantiated claim, or maybe saying they stated something without proof. How does to give no evidence offer a slightly different, maybe more impactful nuance?
I think the nuance is really in its directness and sometimes an implied criticism. Unsubstantiated claim is quite formal. You hear it in academic or maybe legal settings.
Right.
To state without proof is very factual, very neutral. But to give no evidence, well, it feels more direct, more forceful. It starkly emphasizes the complete absence of any support.
It highlights the gap.
It really does. It highlights that glaring lack of credibility. And importantly, it focuses on the action or maybe the inaction of the person making the claim. It suggests they are responsible for this omission.
Yeah.
So it can feel a bit more accusatory or at least more critically direct. It often implies a deliberate failure to provide support.
It definitely sounds more pointed, less passive than unsubstantiated, or almost like a direct challenge to the speaker.
It can function that way, yes.
The example sentence shows this directness clearly. He said the product was amazing, but gave no evidence to back it up. It's concise, unambiguous about the lack of support.
Exactly. Or in a professional context, maybe a manager reviewing a pitch. Look, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but this proposal gives no evidence that this new strategy will actually increase our sales figures.
Clearly demanding the proof.
Absolutely. Or for IELTS, maybe discussing media literacy. It's become so important to be critical of online news because so many articles make these sensational claims, but then give absolutely no evidence to support them. And that can be incredibly misleading.
That's such a crucial point today with so much information flying around.
It really is.
So, for you listening, have you ever encountered a situation where someone made a wild claim and gave absolutely no evidence?
And the sample answer is a fun, relatable one.
Yes.
A friend once insisted they saw a ghost, but gave no evidence whatsoever, no photo, no other witness, nothing.
Huh. A classic example of a claim lacking any verifiable support.
Perfect.
So, given the sheer volume of information, misinformation, disinformation we all navigate daily, why is it so vital for an advanced speaker to not only understand, but also be able to clearly identify when someone gives no evidence? What's the deeper significance here?
Well, the deeper insight, I believe, is how directly this phrase tackles core issues of accountability, integrity, and just fundamental critical thinking and communication.
Okay.
In an era where information can be easily manipulated and false narratives spread like wildfire, recognizing when someone gives no evidence is basically your first line of defense.
Against being misled.
Exactly. It highlights that fundamental gap between just asserting something and actually proving it, or at least supporting it logically. If you connect this to the bigger picture, it's foundational for evaluating any information, whether you're in an academic debate, making a business decision, or just reading the news.
Right. It applies everywhere.
Everywhere. It empowers you to distinguish between what's reliable and what's merely an empty assertion. It makes you a more discerning listener, a more critical thinker, and ultimately a more responsible communicator yourself. It's like having a critical thinking superpower, really.
Critical thinking superpower. I love that description. It truly is about navigating our noisy world with discernment. Okay, finally, let's explore a phrase that speaks to reconnection, to finding value again. To rediscover something.
Yes, to rediscover. This means finding joy or interest or maybe value in something again, but specifically after a period where you'd perhaps forgotten it or neglected it or just weren't engaging with it.
So it's not finding something new, it's returning to something known.
Exactly. It implies a positive re-engagement with something from your past, something familiar.
So how does to rediscover differ from simply, say, to start doing something again, or even to find something new? There seems to be a distinct emotional quality, maybe a sense of journey involved.
Absolutely. There's a significant emotional depth, often a narrative arc, implied in rediscover. To start doing something again is very factual, very neutral. It just marks the resumption of an activity.
Okay.
To find something new, obviously, means it's your first encounter. But to rediscover, that specifically suggests returning to something you already knew, but maybe you let it slide or forgotten how much you liked it or perhaps didn't fully appreciate it the first time around.
And now you see it differently.
Often, yes. You find renewed pleasure or new value or fresh interest in it. It implies this personal journey of re-engagement. It's like reawakening a positive connection or gaining a new perspective on something familiar. It's often about remembering why you enjoyed it, or maybe even finding deeper reasons to appreciate it now.
That distinction is really clear now. It's not just the action, it's the rekindled feeling, the reconnection that matters. The example sentence captures this perfectly. I recently rediscovered how fun board games are.
Yeah.
It implies a past enjoyment that got lost somehow, now it's been joyfully found again.
Precisely. Or, in a professional context, you might hear someone share, after years focused solely on my career climb, I've rediscovered the immense joy of just painting in the evenings.
Suggesting a return to a neglected passion that brings new fulfillment.
Exactly. Or, thinking IELTS again, describing a hobby or maybe a period of change. During the pandemic lockdowns, many people, myself included, at this unexpected time to slow down and, well, rediscover hobbies they had left behind years ago, things like baking or gardening or even just reading for pure pleasure again.
That really highlights the renewed appreciation and personal growth that often comes with rediscovery.
It does.
That's so true. The pandemic definitely sparked a lot of that for people. Okay, so for you listening, what's something you've rediscovered recently? A hobby, a place, maybe even an old friendship?
And the sample answer gives a lovely introspective example. I rediscovered how much I love journaling. It's become an essential part of my daily reflection again.
That speaks beautifully to finding that personal connection and value again in something that had maybe faded away.
Yeah, it's a great example of re-engagement leading to growth.
So wrapping this one up,
Hmm.
what's the ultimate power of using rediscovery for an advanced English speaker compared to just saying doing something again? How does it enrich their expression, maybe their understanding of human experience?
Well, the deeper insight here, I think, is that rediscover speaks to a much more profound, more reflective process.
Hmm.
It's not just resuming an activity. It's about finding that original spark again, that initial joy or purpose,
Or seeing it with new eyes.
or seeing it with new, maybe more mature eyes, exactly. Finding new reasons to appreciate it. So it allows you to convey not just the action itself, but the whole nuanced emotional and intellectual journey involved in reconnecting with something.
Right.
It adds significant richness, real emotional resonance to your expression. It lets you articulate personal growth or renewed passion or a deeper appreciation for things that might have been overlooked. It really communicates a more sophisticated understanding of how change and continuity work in our lives.
Wow, okay. What an incredible journey through just 8 phrases. It's so clear that really understanding these subtle distinctions, these nuances, is absolutely key to sounding, well, natural, sophisticated, and truly impactful as an advanced English speaker.
Absolutely. And maybe that raises an important question for you, the listener, to think about. How might digging into these subtle distinctions in vocabulary not just polish your language skills, but actually sharpen your critical thinking? How might it help you interpret situations, motivations, the world around you with, greater discernment?
That's a fantastic thought to end on, something definitely worth mulling over. Okay, by now you should have a much stronger grip on these powerful phrases. And now that we've really dived deep into them, let's see how well you've absorbed everything with a quick quiz.
Let's test that knowledge.
All right, first question. If someone says we've reached peak avocado toast, what do they mean? Is it option A, it's now the healthiest food trend? Option B, people are just starting to enjoy it widely? Or option C, it has become overly popular or overdone? Feel free to pause the deep dive here if you need a moment to think about the answer.
Take your time.
Okay, the correct answer is option C. It has become overly popular or overdone.
Exactly right. Remember, to reach peak something implies that a trend is so widespread it's hit saturation point, maybe even become a bit tiresome. Just like our example, I think we've reached peak avocado toast. It's everywhere now.
Perfect. Okay, question number 2. What does it mean to live under a rock? Is it option A, to be unaware of common or popular events? Option B, to live in a quiet and remote location? Or option C, to avoid social interaction on purpose? Feel free to pause here if you need a moment to consider.
Which one fits the idiom?
The correct answer is option A, to be unaware of common or popular events.
That's the one. To live under a rock means being surprisingly out of touch with widespread knowledge or big news. Like in the example, I had no idea that show was so popular. I must have been living under a rock. It's about that disconnect from common awareness.
Got it. Moving on to question 3. If someone is trying to pin down a decision, they are. Option A, struggling to define or finalize something. Option B, trying to forget a previous mistake. Or option C, looking for someone to blame.
Okay, pin down a decision.
Take a moment to think about your answer. You can pause if you need to.
What did we say about the effort involved?
The correct answer is option A, struggling to define or finalize something.
Precisely. When you're trying to pin down something, it implies that effort, that struggle to make something clear, defined, or decided, especially when it's proving difficult or elusive, like trying to pin down the best idea for my presentation.
Excellent. Here's question 4. To do something for someone's sake implies option A, it benefits only yourself. Option B, it's done out of care or concern for another person. Or option C, you're trying to teach someone a lesson.
For someone's sake.
You can pause the deep dive now if you need to reflect on that one.
Think about the motivation.
Okay, the correct answer is option B. It's done out of care or concern for another person.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For someone's sake emphasizes that the action is done because of them, in their interest, for their benefit, often driven by that compassion, care, or sense of duty, like leaving early for the kids' sake so they can rest. Genuine consideration.
Right. Question 5 for you. What does to be lethargic mean? Is it option A, to act very quickly and erratically? Option B, to lose interest in other people? Or Option C, to feel sluggish and low on energy.
Lethargic.
Pause here if you'd like a bit more time to consider.
I remember the difference from just tired.
The correct answer is option C, to feel sluggish and low on energy.
Spot on. To be lethargic is exactly that, lacking energy, lacking enthusiasm, experiencing that general sluggishness that affects you both physically and mentally, like feeling completely lethargic after a long meeting.
Perfect. Okay, just 3 more. Question 6. What is meant by a phrase like bookstore core? Is it option A, an aesthetic or vibe inspired by a theme? Option B, a literal category of architectural design? Or option C, a type of professional dress code?
Ah, the core phrases.
Feel free to pause the deep dive if you need to think about the answer.
What kind of category is it?
The correct answer is option A, an aesthetic or vibe inspired by a theme.
Precisely. The trend plus core structure is all about naming a specific aesthetic, a whole vibe based on a theme. It creates this recognizable feeling or look, just like bookstore core with his vintage glasses and cardigans.
Exactly. Question 7. When someone gives no evidence, they. Option A, try to explain something in detail. Option B, make a claim without supporting proof. Or option C, avoid answering a personal question.
Giving no evidence.
Take a moment to decide on this one. Pause if needed.
What's missing?
The correct answer is option B, make a claim without supporting proof.
That's right. To give no evidence means exactly that, making an assertion, a statement, without providing any factual support, any proof, any data to back it up. Like saying the product was amazing but gave no evidence.
Yeah.
It highlights that critical lack of credibility.
Absolutely. And finally, our last question, number 8. If someone rediscovered journaling, it means they. Option A, started doing it for the first time ever. Option B, remembered they dislike writing regularly. Or option C, found joy again in something they used to enjoy.
Rediscovered.
You can pause now if you need a final moment to think.
What does that prefix imply?
The correct answer is option C, found joy again in something they used to enjoy.
Excellent. To rediscover something is all about finding that joy, that interest, that value again in something familiar after maybe a long break, reconnecting with its original appeal, or finding a new appreciation, just like rediscovering how much I love journaling.
Fantastic. And that wraps up our quiz. Hopefully you nailed most of those and feel even more confident using these incredibly useful advanced English phrases.
Yeah, well done if you got those right.
Remember, really diving into these nuanced expressions, understanding how they differ subtly from simpler words, that's what adds real depth and precision to your English. It's absolutely key to sounding natural, sophisticated, and, truly impactful.
It really is.
Yeah.
And maybe just to reiterate that final thought,
Yeah.
consider how sharpening your understanding of these vocabulary distinctions might actually sharpen your critical thinking overall. How it might help you see the world and people's motivations just that little bit more clearly.
That's a brilliant challenge to leave you with. Keep practicing, keep exploring, keep pushing your English boundaries. And don't forget, if you want more opportunities to practice these kinds of phrases and really build your speaking confidence, head over to SpeakDuo.com. Connect with other learners on video calls. It's an amazing way to improve.
Definitely worth checking out.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into advanced English. Until then, keep speaking superbly.